I was gonna say, I guess as ready as we'll ever be.
It is 6:30. We'll call the meeting to order. The first order of business, as usual, is to approve the agenda. When we approve the agenda, we also approve the consent agenda and all the items in it, including any special call meetings. So do I hear all those in favor say aye? Aye. Opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and so ordered. Dr. Cox, I'll now turn the meeting over to you, knowing that we have quite a lengthy agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. So we're down to a communication to the board. We had in the work session the project update. Also, we had an update on the 2020 graduations. So the director's comments were taken care of during the work session. So I will turn it back to you to see whatever comments that you may have under 5B.
We're going to hold the dates for the future meeting next month, and we'll send out some options. We have some conflicts for the regularly scheduled day, so if you got any suggestions, you can submit them. But we're going to wait. That's all.
Okay. Then moving on to item 6 on the agenda, unfinished business. We have a matter before the board concerning the sale of the Bluff City Middle School property. Mr. Hull did provide a briefing during the work session. So we do have a recommendation for you, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Hull at this time to present that for your consideration.
Thank you. The Bluff City Middle School property was advertised as is our procedure, and bids were taken. You've received a synopsis of the 2 bids that were received, and by far the highest bid was by Christopher Leisure with Business Information Systems, and the bid was $170,000 for the property, which includes the building, and $170,000 for that for our property that's deeded in the school board name, and $20,000 for the other smaller portion of the property that's deeded in the county name. So that's the bid before you. I would recommend that we accept that, and be glad to answer if you have questions.
Should we really ask for public comment before we do a bid, or before we do votes? Because if somebody's on there, I'd really kind of hate to ignore them. What do you think?
Won't hurt to ask. Mark's suggestion that we ask and see if there's anyone on that. I don't know how they would do it because they'll be on YouTube and we're on Hangout.
Oh, they can't talk through this? Oh,
But
my mistake.
that's okay.
I thought they were all on the same.
It's okay.
Never mind.
We have a recommendation on the floor. I would make the motion that we accept Chris Leisure's bid.
I'll second that.
And having a second, do we have any discussion? I would like to reiterate my comments earlier in the workshop for the record, so that if we have to point back to them, that our intentions are to try to either get the restrictions lifted off that one piece of property, or to quick deed it at some point. But are there any other discussions? Hearing none.
Is Christy on, or who's doing the?
Her microphone's not working.
Yeah, come up to Chris.
You're still on there. that's what
Okay. I think Mrs. King's microphone is not working, so I would go ahead and do that if that's okay. And I'm not sure what the order is. I'll just go around the room. Okay, Mr. Iverson.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore.
Yes.
Mr. Spivey.
Yes.
Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
Ms. Thomas. Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Thank you. In the work session, Mr. Hull also gave an update on the sale of the other properties, and I don't think there's any further action recommended for that. If there are no comments under unfinished business, then I would draw your attention to new business. Item 7A is the consideration of a recommendation to purchase the TransFinder software system that Mr. Miller presented during the work session. So, Mr. Miller, would you just kind of recap the recommendation that we're making to ask the board to approve this evening?
We have discussed approving TransFinder with GPS.
Okay, we had discussed the transponder option with GPS that would enable us to track buses, their location, give parents an idea when buses would be coming to their home to pick up their children, delivering kids to school, as well as several other options. And we had priced a 3-year option with TransFinder, with the first year being the $47,890 due upon acceptance. And then we would have a second year fee of $9,000 and then a third year fee of $15,000. So the total package price over 3 years would be $71,890. And one thing that is included with this is a hosting fee so that we have no information on our servers.
So it is our recommendation to you, and would respectfully request your approval.
You've heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
That.
Gilmore and Spivey both did it. Whichever one you want to put.
We'll go with Gilmore.
Okay.
Randall Gilmore second the motion, whoever's taking the minutes. Discussion on the motion.
I have one question. I think I know the answer, but I just want to make sure that everybody understands it. The GPS, I think, is the fantastic part of the system. The fact that we're going to have GPSs on buses. The one thing that you said that to me was very impactful was that they would be able to put geofencing to where I would be able to know, hey, the bus is within range. I don't have to have my kids standing outside in the rain, have them on the porch and say, okay, they're next street over, go ahead and go out to the bus stop. So to me, that was fantastic. Is that something that will happen right away? Or is it if we get the GPS, or is that going to be later on?
I think we would probably activate the GPS. It could possibly come as early as January of next year. The first part, I think, will be us getting the stops in and getting the routes in that we have now, and then working on learning that software to change routes.
And I just know that the GPS functions, if we're able to do the apps on the phone for parents, we're able to see where the bus is at, where their kids are at. Those are fantastic. And I mean, those are just wonderful that it's coming at whatever stage it comes. I just want to say thank you, because that to me was the most powerful part of that presentation.
That's the selling point for parents. And then the selling point for the district staff and principals is the field trip feature. It has electronic field trip forms, so no more paper.
But I think it would be fair to say, as we roll this out and implement it, those features would come later. They would not be immediately available. So the routing would, be first, and then. So I don't want people to misunderstand that at the beginning of school this fall we'll have that feature. We certainly do value it. We will operationalize it as soon as possible.
I just want to clarify. I think we discussed this in the work session, Mr. Miller, but this also includes pricing not only for the routes for our 4 high schools now, but when we transition to Westridge in this time frame of the 3-year contract, isn't that pricing built in?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's really important. I don't think any of us would disagree with that. So I know a lot of people have had concerns about that, so I really appreciate you addressing them along with the features that Mr. Arson pointed out. GPS, and while they'll take some time to come into effect, this is really going to seem to move the transportation system in a upward direction and make it easier on you guys, but also better for the parents as well.
The training that they're going to provide us, they said, would get us to the point where once they have the stops put in, and that's what they'll start working on this summer, and then our training will take place over the summer and through the fall, and there's quite a bit of training involved that comes with the package. They said that we would be ready by then to start changing and manipulating routes, so we would not have to bring them back in, but they would be there if we did need them.
Okay, thank you.
Is this going to be something that, I know that there's nobody at central office that has a job. Everybody at central office has multiple jobs, and they put a lot of work on you guys, and I understand that. Are you going to have enough staff to do that? Are you going to be able to do this and still do those other parts of your job? Or is that something we really need to, because we talked about that before, is that we might need to get a transportation only kind of person, or at least get somebody to help in the whole data entry kind of thing? Is this going to be enough for us right now, or do you need to expand it for at least a temporary spot?
The one thing I do like about this software is it will work on any device, Apple or Windows, and it can be accessed from anywhere. So
I'm talking about entry.
So
all this data you're going to be
part of the payment that we're giving them is included in that. $18,000 of it is for them to input the routes that we currently have and all the stops.
Anyone else? Call the question.
Can you guys hear me now? Yeah. Can you repeat who made the motion and the second, please?
I think Mr. Gilmore made the motion. Is that right? Or Mrs. Thomas made the motion and Mr. Gilmore seconded the motion. I believe that's correct.
That's correct.
Heads nod, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Mr. Arson?
Yes.
Mr. Jones? I didn't hear Mr. Jones, I'm sorry.
That was a yes. My mic was off. Thanks.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Spivey?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore?
Yes.
Thank you. We heard a presentation from Mrs. Deloach during the work session concerning the budget amendments. I think we do need action on item B, which is the Discovery Academy amendment. And so I'll turn it over to Ms. Deloach to just briefly recap what it is we're asking for there.
Again, this is just an end of the year amendment to get line items cleaned up for expenses that we have paid. It's no new money. It's just moving between the line items in the Discovery Academy budget.
And I'd actually like to make a motion that we put 7B and C together just for one vote.
You hear the motion? We have a second. Second by Mr. Thomas. Discussion. Hearing none.
Mr. Ireson?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Spivey,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That takes care of 7B and C. The next one is the pre-K grant. Again, Mrs. Deloach.
This resolution is a two-part resolution. The state increased our grant amount, so it recognizes that increase, and then it also cleans up the line items in the pre-K grant. If we do not spend those monies, we do not get to roll them over, so you have to spend them in the year that you have. So this recognizes that and gets the budget all in line to spend out those monies.
You have the recommendation. Do I hear a motion? Motion by
I'll
Mr.
second that.
Iverson. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Spivey seconds the motion. Discussion. Hearing none? Hearing none?
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Spivey,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas, Mr. Gilmore,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Iverson.
Yes.
Thank you. And then 7E is the SCORE grant, Mrs. Deloach.
The SCORE grant is actually funding we received a couple of years ago, and we just haven't spent it all out. This is it required no matching. It was just grant funds. So this is to spend those out and finish that grant off.
We have a recommendation. Do I hear a motion? Motion by
I'll
Mr. Iverson.
second.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
I heard a second, but I don't know. Mr. Spivey seconds the motion. Discussion on the motion.
Yes,
So-
Ingrid is the, and I don't know if you're the one to answer this. Is this score totally for the literacy program? This grant?
This grant was for the literacy program in the beginning to bring teachers in and do some professional learning. We paid stipends to teachers who did extra work. So the remaining money is just going to be funded to get supplies and materials to teachers and leaders just to finish out this account.
And I'll add that I've spoken with some teachers that participated in this training program that told me that it was wonderful and that it took them to new levels. And sometimes when we try new things, they're uncomfortable at first, but that's the only way we're going to grow. And that's what they told me. So I'm glad that we continue to participate in things like this every day, and hopefully we will keep getting grants like this.
Thank you, Mr. Spivey.
Anyone else? Call the question.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Spivey,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas. I'm sorry, I didn't hear Ms. Thomas.
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Iverson,
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That takes us to the final item on our business meeting this evening, and that is requested approval of the budget presentation for the 2020-2021 fiscal year, which includes a 5-year capital improvement plan request. I would just like to say once more how much I appreciate the work of lead team, especially Mrs. Deloach, who put all of this together, but starting with the school principals and the lead team who began this work in earnest as soon as we got back in January. And so we've been meeting for months. And then, of course, the restrictions that we've had because of the COVID-19, the work has been made more difficult, but I'm really, really appreciative of the dedication that our staff has put into this. We are requesting that the board take action and approve this evening. Today, Mrs. Deloach received a request that we present this to the Commission Budget Committee this coming Wednesday, I believe, on the 13th. So, Ms. Deloach, do you have any further comments to make?
No, I believe we discussed everything in the work session.
I'm sorry, we didn't hear what you said.
I believe we discussed everything in the work session. We should be good. I'll be glad to answer any questions you have.
Okay, with that, I would respectfully request approval of the budget that was presented to you this evening.
I'll make a motion that we amend the presentation made this afternoon to include a 2% pay raise to honor the governor's request that we increase all staff members by 2%. So I'd like to recommend that we amend the bottom line budget, budget presented by Dr. Cox to include a 2% pay raise for all staff instead of 1%.
I'll second that.
Yes. It take a little more out of the balance, but we got the money. I think it's a great idea.
I don't know if you heard me. I said I'll second that.
Yes.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second to amend the original recommendation. Let's have that vote first.
Just
call the question.
I'd like to just one question to make sure, and I think we're all on the same page. I just want to make sure we're all understanding the same thing. Earlier it was talked about 1% and then the step increase. So we're talking about 2%.
This is 2% and additional.
Absolutely wonderful. I love it.
Call the question.
Mr. Spivey,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Ireson,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
So now we will vote on the original recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion by
I'll
Mr.
second that.
Jones. Do I hear a second?
I'll
Second by
second
Mr.
it.
Thomas. Discussion.
I will say that, to be honest with you, today I was, before the meeting, frustrated because I wanted to be able to look at this and go through this budget. But then I got here and I saw the anguish on the faces of people that have been working on this so hard for so long and realized how much blood, sweat, and tears they put into it. And I really want to say that I very much appreciate it. I know Ingrid did a great job, but she wasn't alone. There was a lot of people worked on this. And it's probably the best thing that anybody could possibly imagine whenever 90% of what we're doing is taking a guess. So thank you all very much. I really appreciate it. And again, I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you very much. Are there any further comments or questions? Hearing none?
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Ireson,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Spivey.
Yes.
Now that the vote's over, I should have asked this prior to, and I apologize, but with the change that Mr. Jones made and we all approved, don't we need to change that final number? We can't really vote this through without changing the total, right? Okay. The added parts. Okay, good. Fantastic.
And thank you, Mr. Jones. I did catch that.
So, I couldn't hear that. What was that?
No further business before.
Matthew's
Okay,
next.
sorry, Matthew.
No, I couldn't hear Mark's question and the answer. I heard him ask about the final number, but I didn't hear the answer.
Yeah, okay.
I said to amend the budget, the final number to include the 2% raise, so it increases to approximately $450,000 total.
Okay.
Maybe that's ballpark on it.
Yeah. That's similar to what we had months ago when we voted on the same type of amendment that you and I made. Okay. Thanks.
Good deal.
I think Mr. Thomas had a comment.
Yes, today is National Day of Prayer, and I know that this has been a time when we've really depended on that, and we want to pray for our Sullivan School, County School parents and students, and how much we love and miss them, and praying for our teachers as they walk through this, and our administration. We really appreciate you so much. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Anyone else? Seeing no further business before the board, we will stand adjourned. But for everyone, you have another invite. We have an attorney-client meeting that we will be getting on immediately after this. But we'll take maybe a 5 or 10 minute break. But get back on that call. Thank you very much. We're adjourned.